Hey guys, Dr. Alison Bremner here with Cultivating Success, where we talk about the business part of chiropractic. And I like having guests on that can talk to you so you don't just hear me talking about business and how important it is. Tonight, I have Rocky Lalvani, and he is a certified coach, which part of his business is Profits First. If you haven't read this book, it's awesome. And just helping entrepreneurs actually keep some of their money. Hey, Rocky.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Allison.
Heck yeah. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and how you got into all of this?
So that's a long story, but I'll keep it short. Historically, I'm a spreadsheet geek. I've literally been playing with spreadsheets probably going on 40 plus years. So think about all the way back to the original ones. When I look at spreadsheets and numbers, they tell me stories. When look at a tax return, it tells me a story. And I've learned that for most people, they don't look at their numbers, they ignore them. And I just didn't realize how much of a problem it was. And then one day, someone kind of gave me this aha that business owners weren't looking at their numbers. I'm like, wait a minute. You're a business owner. You're in the business of business. And they're like, no, 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 no. They're in the business of doing what they love. Accounting is not on the list. And I was like, oh my God. And then like a couple of ahas, and I figured out a business plan and a way to do what I loved and really enjoyed, and also to be of service to people and to help them with their money. Because people who can handle their money and have freedom,
Yeah.
and they can do what they truly want, and they help to make the world and the country a better place. So that's the way I give back.
Yeah, I think that that's like a really good thought process because I think what happens is the demonization of money, right? So it's like you're a bad person if you have money. And that happens, a chiropractic, they're taught, oh, you're of service. So then you can't be of money. But the reality is you can be way more of service if you have money. Isn't that nuts? Like that's kind of what's gets taught.
Politicians are of service, and look at how much money they get,
Yeah.
right?
You can, I mean, yeah, it's just, it's interesting because I think you're right. People get into business because they're really technicians, right? They're
Mhm.
good at what they do, but the reality is, and so I always I have associates, I have docs that work for me. And the number one thing that we have to talk to them about is like, hey, guess what? The actual chiropractic portion is a small portion of what you're doing day to day. The everything else, the business, you gotta look at your numbers, networking, being able to communicate, that's super important. So, and I'm sure it's across the board with other businesses and what they do.
Do they teach you sales in chiropractic school?
They don't think that they're in sales.
Everybody, everybody is in sales. And if
Yeah,
you think I'm kidding, just go look at your kids. They are the best salespeople ever. They will never stop until they get what they want.
that's right. It's only when you're older you lose that, where it's impolite or it's like we do we have constant contact. We send emails and sometimes like, oh, is one email a month okay? Is that's too much? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, no. Like more. You're not selling enough. But I think that makes people uncomfortable.
I think though, sales is a fine line. I think too often sales is associated with pushing stuff on people. Real sales is about figuring out what problems people have and showing them a solution. And then it's up to them whether they want to take that solution. When you shift your mindset about what you're doing with sales, I think it becomes much easier. And a lot of those barriers come down when you realize sales is service, right? You said that in the beginning. So consider sales to be service. Otherwise, just let your people stay in pain forever. I guess that's better.
Yeah, I know you're actually doing a disservice to people when you have the solution, you have the answer, but it is a wacky kind of thing. I talk to a lot of students because a lot of students listen to this podcast, and some of the stuff they say is just it's just crazy, but it's what's kind of told. So what do you hear across the board if you're working with a service-based industry, like the problems, the big kind of struggles that they typically have?
So I think in medical, there's a few different struggles in medical. Number one, no matter what specialty you go into, probably with the exception of even dentistry is the only one that I've heard of that actually teaches the business of dentistry. Everyone else, it is a taboo topic, right? They don't want you to talk about business. technically there's really no math class, right? So you're not even understanding numbers. And more often than not, you're so specialized in what you do that everything else kind of gets swept to the side. And so you're somewhat oblivious to what's going on. And most people in the medical profession are targets by all the financial advisors because they know you make money and they literally they think you're a sucker. And so that's what happens. And then you have the second half, which is what you've kind of alluded to, this mindset of we're of service, right? So we can't charge or we can't make money or we can't talk about profit. I can tell you, I know what surgeons and oncologists make, and they're living a good life helping people. So I don't think that is the case. The other thing is really building your business model right up front. And what I mean by that is if your business is built entirely on insurance, someone else is setting your prices. Someone else is setting your deliverables. Someone else is in control of your business and they will squeeze you to death. And
Yeah.
so be very, very careful in how you build your business model. And it really comes down to very simple business math. Most of the math that we use in our business is second through fourth grade. So you don't have to be smarter than a fifth grader, right? It's not that difficult, but you got to sit down and do it.
Yeah, I think that what happens is, speaking about chiropractors, like this, put their head in the sand. They're like, well, I'll just see people give really good service and I'll learn the business later. Right. And it's really the opposite of that. I mean, not to say that, students get really, really angry when I say that, when they're just like, oh, well, I'm just going to have to be the best adjuster possible. And I'm like, well, you should be, just because is what you should do. But you got to be just as good at your business model and what you're doing, because it doesn't matter. You have no one in the
Well,
door.
let me ask you a question. What does it take to be the best adjuster?
It's practice.
Practice. And practice takes time and money.
Yeah.
So if you don't have time and money, you can't be the best adjuster.
Definitely. And if no one's coming in the door, I don't care how big of heart you have to help people, you can't help anyone. You can't keep the lights on.
No.
And it's also very interesting. So one thing I really liked about Profits First is, because I'm a bit of a frugal person to begin with, and what I see docs put their money into, young docs, like they graduate with a bunch of debt and they take out a business loan or borrow money from their parents and they put it all into the aesthetics of their office. Right. And it's like, here's my big, fancy, pretty office. They have a huge overhead and they're sitting there twiddling their thumbs.
So we deal a lot with the trades and we make the same joke. The fancier the pickup truck, the inverse relationship to how quickly they go out of business.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
And it's basically that. Nobody is coming to you because of your fancy office. They are not coming to you for your business card. They are not coming to you for your website. They are coming to you because they are in pain and they want you to solve that problem. And if you can talk to that and solve that, they don't care if you're on the side of the road, in the back of your station wagon adjusting that.
Yeah. I have patients that come in and I've had this painting on the wall for 10 years. And they're like, and they've been patients for like 5, 6, 7 years. And they're like, oh, when did you get that painting? Like they have no clue. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's new. Like they're focused on them, their
Mhm.
problems. They could care less about, maybe there'll be one or two patients that will say something about something, but the majority of people, yeah, you're right. They want to get better. And that's it.
And so don't focus on that. Figure out what is important and focus on that. And then build your business model based on that.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit before we started the recording, but also keeping the money is also kind of a skill I have found, because a lot of times they're making $1 million, but they're spending 1,000,001, so it's like it doesn't really matter.
It is, I think it's easier to make money than it is to keep money.
Yeah.
And you are correct. It doesn't, so we have a saying, top line is vanity, Bottom line is sanity and cash flow is reality. And too often we all focus on the top line because it's easy to see. I just have to look at the week and go, oh, this many patients came in or this much revenue came in. Tell me what your bottom line is. Most people and most business owners can't figure it out. And the biggest problem is your P&L does not tell you the whole story. So your profit and loss tells you part of the story. The real money is made or lost on the balance sheet. Nobody looks at a balance sheet. And when they look at the balance sheet, they look at it once a year in static formation. They don't have any clue of all the leaks that are going on money wise in their business. So the P&L says, hey, we made $500,000 this year. And if I look at the balance sheet, I realize they lost 100,000 and it doesn't show up anywhere.
Yeah, I think my favorite principle, which is a principle talked about in other things, but in profits first talking about the Parkinson's law, right? So like if you things will take the time that they take, and also your expenses will be whatever you compress it to be. So if you in the beginning, and reading this book, I've doubled my, because I would every month put money into my what I call my overflow account or profit account, we want to call it. And I just was like, let me just double it. Let's just see what happens. And like legitimately have not noticed a difference month to month because it's just not there. So if that money is taken out and given to me, and then my expenses are later, it's the money somehow is always okay. And I think that you think that you need to buy all the things first. I think that was one of my favorite principles.
So Parkinson's law basically states a business will use up all the time and money allocated, right? So whatever time and money you put towards a project, it will get used up. Give yourself less time and less money, you'll figure out a way to get it done and get it done faster. You have a jam-packed day, you get through it, don't you?
Yeah.
How is that possible? Like, clearly, you do what you need to get through it. Same thing happens with money. When you have too much money sitting around, you easily spend it all. And that's what Profit First does. It skims your profit off the top, it puts it in a separate bank account, and it sets it aside so that you are ensured that you are profitable and that you actually have the cash to show for that profit. And then it puts money aside for your pay, it puts money aside for taxes, and it constrains how much you really have to spend. And you truly know how much you have to spend. It's kind of what we talk about as little plates, right? So if you want to go on a diet, the first thing they tell you is get a smaller plate. You put less food, you eat less, and that's it. We're doing the same thing for you in your business. We're giving you a smaller bank account to run your business on. I guarantee you, someone else is running their business on less than you.
Oh
They
yeah.
can figure it out, so can you. And you've got to be able to do that. And again, it always comes down to the business math. And basically, business math looks like this. How many leads do I have? So how many people call and say I'm interested? How many of those people actually show up for an appointment, right? So, okay, now we have the number of appointments every week. How much are you charging per an appointment? Is insurance dictating? Are you dictating? Do you have enough margin? That tells me how much revenue is coming in. Once we know what your revenue is, well, you've got all your overhead. You know, how much is your payroll? How much is all your marketing and advertising costing? What's your overhead costing? And that tells you the top line, which is the first top line of profit. And then after that profit comes all your loans, your capital improvements, buying equipment, all that stuff that shows up below the line, and then how much money you're taking out of the business. More often than not, people treat their business like a piggy bank and they don't realize how much money they're actually extracting from their business. And then they wonder why there's no money in the business. Well, you spent it personally or professionally.
Yeah, another little trick that it's annoying, but I like it, which is just cancel your business credit cards like every 2 years. Because there's so many auto payments on there, like you don't even know. And you're just like, oh, I'll just cancel it. And then I bet, you could decrease probably, hundreds of dollars that you didn't even realize that was happening. Or you're just like, I don't really need that anymore. And you're
Yeah.
fine.
So we do recommend people do an expense audit, which is basically to go through the last 3 months of your expenses and ask yourself, is this necessary for the business? Is this something that's needed, but maybe we could replace? So, phone service is phone service. Find the cheapest one that works reasonably. And then the last are all the expenses that you spend on that really have no impact on the business, which are the artwork and, all the other stuff that you spend money on that doesn't actually relate to driving revenue.
I was surprised when I looked at my expenses, how much we were spending on lunches. And because I got lazy. In the beginning, it was like, okay, my associate meeting is this day. We'll get lunch for that day. But then, of course, it got into like, oh, well, I'm just lazy and I won't bring lunch. And it was like, we spent like $600 a month on lunch. It's stupid.
And it's good you got on track with that because today, with inflation, it'd probably be $1,000.
Yeah, it's nuts. Yeah, I went to restaurants, and that's the thing is chiropractors are like, oh, don't worry, I'm not gonna raise my prices. No one will pay it. I'm like, are you kidding? Like Starbucks has got coffee day for $5. Insane. So
It is.
like,
I mean,
you're worth it.
everybody has been raising prices, and it's getting ridiculous. And the reality is if all your costs are going up, you at least have to keep up. Otherwise, you're going to be behind.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, let's talk about that. It's very uncomfortable. Why do you think that's so uncomfortable for people? Because they see it all around. It's like people are raising prices on them, but then they don't feel comfortable raising prices on their customers.
It comes back to money and emotions. Am I worthy? Will people spend on this? Is it worth it? All of those types of things, but at the end of the day, people are going to spend what they're going to spend. It's not your decision to make.
Yeah,
It's a
definitely.
lot easier to give a discount than it is to say to somebody, well, I've decided you should pay more after the fact. That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you have to sit down and pencil out your numbers to say, if I do 1,000 visits a year at this much money, is that enough to cover everything that I need to cover? If it
Yep.
isn't, something has to change. You can work harder, you can charge more. I like people to work less and make more, but that's just my bent. You want to work twice as hard and make less? That's your bent.
I had this student one time. We were doing a little group session, and he was like, "Well, what if I can just have a clinic that's open 24 hours a day?" I was like, I mean,
Who,
if that's what
who's
you
going
want
to
to do,
work?
man. He was
Who's
like
going to
him.
be there?
He was like him. That's what his thing was. And I was just like, all right. Like, I was like, if that truly makes you happy, then go for it. I will work 3 days a week.
How is he going to work 24 hours a day?
I don't know. He's exactly the logistics part of it. He hadn't figured out, but it was like this emotional, like what you're talking about. It was an emotional thing. He was just like, he wanted to be available. Anyone that needed help at any time, he wanted to be available.
Okay, I'm okay with that, but here's the condition. Okay, it's $1,000 a visit
Right. Yeah. You're paying a
because
premium.
you pay a premium, and okay, I only saw 15 people this month, but hey, I paid the bills.
Yeah, I mean, that would be amazing, but that definitely not where this kid's head was. But and I'm just saying that's the kind of wackadoodle stuff that I hear at a school. It's just like and then I'm like, well, what about you guys talk like what business book have you read? What money mindset things you're doing? And it's like crickets, nothing.
No. Well, again, it comes back to most most medical based schools do not teach business. It is a taboo topic and they
Yeah.
don't want to. But yet, I think, what is it? 20% of our economy is healthcare spending.
Yeah.
So the reality is somebody's making money.
It might as well be you.
Might as well be you.
Yeah. Might as well Manifestation Babe has a podcast, and that's like her thing is like someone's gotta be rich, might as well be me. I'm
Yeah,
like, yeah, might as
it's
well.
okay. Might as well. Nothing
Yeah,
wrong with it.
the thing that sort of like drives me nuts though is I do see a lot of chiropractors on stage, like at seminars, and they're just talking about, oh, I saw this many visits and, this is how many people I'm helping, and at no point. And then when I get them like on an interview, or I get them like behind the stage and ask them some questions, not like I'm trying to interrogate them, like legitimately just trying to like have a conversation. And they're just like, oh, I don't know how much money I make, or like, oh, it's unethical to charge that much. Then they'll start putting an emotional thing to it. And that's what I hear a lot. And I'm like, it's not unethical either way. Like if you want to charge that, I'm saying go for it. Like I'm not trying to change your mind, but then you try to make me feel bad that I'm unethical, or like there's some sort of thing wrong with me. And that's rampant in chiropractic. From the stage,
Well,
it's this thing.
does anyone shop for the cheapest doctor?
I mean, sometimes that's the joint, but I could probably get in trouble for saying that. Yeah, but if it like that is, again, that's something that's not like, it's a quick fix, and people understand that, right? Like it's like if I want something of quality, I'm not going to McDonald's. Like I understand that that's going to be crap.
Right.
Yes, they're cheap. They're shopping hopefully for the best, right?
Hey, and everyone has their own choices. I mean, you have to make your choices and figure out your business model that works. Honestly, if you want to be the cheapest, I'd rather sit down and say, look, I'm going to treat, I don't know, 200 patients on my payroll, and each one of them is going to pay me $150 a month. And they can come in as many times as they want, space available. And you do the math. I don't know. I mean, that's like whatever, 30 grand a month. And if that's enough for you to run your business, you help those people and you charge them a reasonable price, but you don't have to deal with like it's just monthly billing. They come in once, they come in 5 times, whatever. And that's okay. Like figure out a business model that works for you and do it.
What do you think is like right now, someone listening to this, like the first step they should take? Like, I haven't thought about anything. What's the first thing that they should be doing?
So I think the first thing is just to understand the basic numbers. How many visits? How much do you charge per visit? How much do you actually collect? Because they may not be the same. So does your revenue number add up? And then the next thing is, what are all your expenses? And what do you need to live your life? And figure out, like, that's all subtraction math, a little bit of multiplication. You can do this on literally on the back of a napkin, right? Look up the numbers, one little piece of paper. And at the end of the day, are you happy with what the results say? And are they realistic to what you're actually seeing?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's more scary than it, like the thought of doing it's more scary than it actually is. Once you do it, it's like a band-aid, you rip
Yeah,
it off, and then you can
you
make
do it.
improvements.
And so this is where profit first comes in cool. Because if you say my expenses are 60% of what I take in, then put 60% in the operating expense account and see if you're able to live on that 60% of operating expenses. You say 20% is my pay. Okay. 15 to tax and 5 to profit. Move the money every couple weeks into those buckets and see if the buckets stay full. If the buckets don't stay full, then something's wrong. Your math is off. Your assumptions are incorrect. Profit First is a cash flow system is literally designed for basic business owners who don't want to do all the math, who don't want to do this. And if this sounds complicated to you, um, Profit First has actually recently partnered with Relay Bank. And what Relay Bank does is every time money comes in on a set schedule, it moves it to all your accounts for you. You
Oh,
don't even have to
wow.
think about it. It does it automatically for you. It automates your entire Profit First. And then all you have to do is just do what you're doing. And is there money? Is there no money? And you're
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a little bit. If you haven't read this book or heard this sort of concept of having different bank accounts, not just everything in one bank account, because as we talked about, things get spent. Because if you don't give it a job, it gets spent. So what Rocky's talking about is that you have an expense account, which is like, how much it pay the rent, pay your employees, pay whatever. And then you have different account, you have an account for taxes, you have an account for your profits, you have an account for different things, and you'll find what you're actually spending. And so that's really cool that a bank actually separates that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was the one thing we've been waiting for forever, and we finally have somebody who does it and does it well. And it's all automated. You set it up and you forget about it and you go do what you love to do. And your cash moves to where it's supposed to be. And if there's no cash in that bank account, you know something broke. Now go fix it.
Yeah. It is amazing though how you will just you'll adapt, and chiropractors are really into adaptation. Their bodies adapt. That's what chiropractic's about.
Right.
But the thing about your business is that if you are in a situation, you adapt to it. So it's much easier to do that than just sit there with your head in the sand and wonder why you don't have enough money, or like why your business is in trouble, because it can be stressful.
And I think most people don't talk about the money because it's a taboo subject. The reality is we are business owners, right? If you don't understand the business, we've got a problem. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, you can't serve your patients if you can't keep the lights on.
Very true. And it is, I like, the thing is, when I was in a group of chiropractors and we were very open about money and business, and I thought that was normal. And then going outside of that, and other people, they get so uncomfortable with it. And like, you don't have to talk about exact numbers. I don't need to know exactly what you make, but like to talk about like, oh, I want to do this, this, and that so that I can do this. It's like they get so uncomfortable. And I guess people in general, money makes people pretty uncomfortable.
It does. The cool thing about profit first is you can talk in percentages, right? I bring in revenue, 60% goes to overhead, 15% goes to tax, 20% goes to me, 5% goes to profit. Like that's it. That's how we do our percentage splits.
Yeah.
It's very non-emotional, and you kind of work on that and then say, well, I'd like to have 25% go to me. Well, cut your expenses by 5%,
And that's what makes
right?
it fun. I think that,
Yeah.
like, even when you make, I like made a expense cut of like $5, which is like no big deal. But I'm like, ooh, that's five more dollars in a year. That's like, $60, or, like it starts to then build in your head, and you start to get, instead of like, ooh, but I really want my cappuccino in the morning every day. And, instead, like, no, I really want to find 100 little $5 things I can cut.
And it really adds up, and I think that's what people don't realize is how much things add up over time. And they add up considerably. Um, so yeah, very much. You literally have to do that.
So
And you
yeah.
do have to cut costs. And it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't know why people are kind of so negative towards it.
Well, I think it's like that lack, right? They feel again emotionally attached, right? They're emotionally attached to things, and then they feel, oh, if I can't have that, then like, what's the point of even having a business? 'Cause I have a business so I can live and buy whatever I want, and anytime I want. And it's like, well, like really, we're talking about a cup of coffee here, or like something that you don't really want, because I would rather take a trip to Italy for 2 weeks because I put money into an account that I've been saving for, because I don't buy these ridiculous thing. And again, I feel like I'm a frugal person, but like having the reminder of, I just recently read the book. It was great because I was like, oh yeah, this is like a reminder. And so I think the accountability kind of comes in with working with people that have, read books like that, are really into business. I think that really helps to talk to someone else and sort of make it normal.
Well, and I think part of it is all the other salespeople are saying you have to spend money to make money, which is the biggest lie out there. You don't necessarily have to spend money to make money. You have to figure out how to be more resourceful. And that's what profit first is all about. That's what Parkinson's law is all about. It's how do you use your resources appropriately and with a little bit of thought. And the people who do that are the ones who end up with more. Warren Buffett's a frugal guy. I mean, look at him. That's why he's got billions. Um, it's not something that's celebrated in society.
Yeah. Well, it's
But
because it's better to keep you spending, right? Like,
yeah, well, the whole thing is designed to keep everybody spending, give your money away, and everyone seems to be pushing on that because if I get you to buy a new car, then I can go to my spouse and say, "Hey, everyone on the block has a new car. Now I can have like it's just this hamster wheel."
yeah.
And it is an absurdity. And you've got to learn to take yourself off and say, "No, that's not what I want. Doesn't make sense for me, and I'm not going to play that game." And there are a lot of there are a minority of business owners who run frugally, who make a ton of money, and then they have the freedom to say no to clients they don't want to work with that are a pain in the butt.
Yeah, for
They
sure.
get to say, "No, I'm not taking that insurance. You're
Yeah.
not paying me enough. No, I'm not doing this." And if you're an employee, you get to say, "No," if you have financial freedom, you get to say, "No, I'm not doing that."
It's very liberating and saying no. So like
Yeah.
for if there's students right now, what would you suggest? Like they don't have a business yet. What are some things that they could be doing to just kind of help their mindset, help them get into like the habits of this stuff?
Well, I think go find yourself a couple of business books and just understand the business of business. Profit First is a really light read. That was a simple, right? There was no complicated stuff in there.
Yeah,
All
I
pretty,
audioed it and then I got the
yeah,
book to see to help me with the percentage portion of it. Yeah, but yeah.
yeah. It's an easy book. There are other books like that. Learn sales, right? You're gonna have to go out and market yourself. So spend a little time learning sales and doing that. Mike actually has a ton of different business books. There's Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, there's Pumpkin Plan, there's Get Different, there's Fix This Next. I can never say that one. Um, so whether you go to his books or somebody else's books, go get yourself a bunch of different business books. The other thing is you're going to be a chiropractor. Go out and find who are the chiropractors who are doing well and building wealth and have strong financials. Go
And
learn from
willing to
them
talk about it. I
and
think that
willing to talk
I
about it.
think that that's the kind of the caveat there. They're willing to talk about the business side of it because sometimes you come into an office that is very, very busy, but you know, not running smoothly.
Well, but then they're not the people you want to talk to,
Yeah. No, totally. You
right?
just got to be a little careful of that.
Yes. No, but the point is you've got to find people that you know are truly successful, who've done it well, and ask and say, "How do you do X? How do you do Y? What should I look at? How should I think about it?" And in doing that, I think that's literally what it comes down to is having those conversations and not being afraid to ask.
Yeah. If a dog's
Um,
successful, they want to help you. Like
yeah,
in any business people, they're excited about it. They want to help you out.
they are. Successful people want to hang around with successful people. And so they're always looking for more successful people who will also come up with that an idea for them and help them back. So that's why they always want to do it. Everybody wants to learn more and they're willing to go because they understand that's the best way to do it by being open and helping each other out.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Rocky, I always ask questions kind of at the end of the podcast, which is, can you remember that your all-time best business decision you ever made, and then maybe one of your worst that you've made throughout your life?
So I think the best was starting this business, but kind of the worst part of that is it took me forever to do it. I
Yeah.
didn't realize the value. I didn't know how to charge. I didn't know how to position. I didn't know how to sell. Like I had to figure all those things out. And so I think that was a big part of it. We've got another business that's in real estate, and I think there we made a mistake because we didn't listen to the experts. We got a little too loose with, you know, the metrics and so forth. And it came back and bit us a few. The biting doesn't happen immediately. The biting happens down the road. And then it's like, oh my God. Um, so we had that issue with real estate. It happens. Every business owner And I think that's the biggest part of it. In business, you're going to fail. And it's actually a good thing, because if you're not failing, you're not testing and you're not learning. And so you've got to do it. Just do it in such a way, literally, that you don't blow up, because that's the key. Just don't make decisions that cause you to blow up. Make decisions that allow you to try things with minimal risk and minimal downside.
Yeah, I played sports my whole life, and in games that I was like too conservative and didn't make any mistakes, I never learned or anything like that. But and sometimes when you like try to do something ridiculous, like you just lose the game, right? So you're finding that happy medium of like you're pushing yourself, you're gonna make some mistakes that you didn't want to do, but you don't want to go out there and try something completely different that you've never even practiced before.
No, we call them level 1 and level 2 decisions. A level 1 decision is a decision that, even if we make a wrong decision, the consequences are minimal. A level 2 decision is a decision that, if we make the wrong decision, is catastrophic. Don't make level 2 decisions lightly. Don't worry about the level 1s. Just try things, have fun, explore, and try it out. And it comes back to what I said before. Make sure you're not making a decision that's going to blow you up.
Definitely. Well, how can people get a hold of you, and so you tell us a little bit about like what sort of services that you offer for your coaching and your businesses.
Sure. So before we do that, can I
Sure.
ask him a favor?
Please.
If Allison brings you value, have you hit the like button? Have you shared this with a couple other students or other chiropractors and go, hey, did you check this out? She said something interesting. Why don't we talk about that? It allows you to have better discussions. And it's a nice way to say thank you to Allison
We
after you
appreciate
do
that.
that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'm always available for those students who have reached out. I always send them my associate reading list and other stuff that I have found helpful to me. And I'm always learning. So I was excited to have Rocky on here because I really like the book. And so talking to someone who's an expert into it. So always wanting to learn. So what else sort of stuff?
So I teach everything about profit first on the Profit Answer Man podcast. As a matter of fact, Mike is on episode 2. Episodes 3 through 13, I put my take on every chapter in the book. So if you want an additional take, or maybe something didn't resonate with you or you didn't get it, I tell you it from a different viewpoint. So just kind of a great way to do that. Everything we do for our clients, all of these things, we go into much more depth there. And so that you get all of that for free. We have programs regardless of where you are. So we've got programs from pretty much startup all the way through, you're running a 7 or 8 figure chiropractic business and you want one-on-one. So we help you along the way.
Awesome. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
The website is profitcomesfirst.com, and my email, it's rocky@profitcomesfirst.com.
Awesome. We'll put that in the description below so you guys can get it and reach out to Rocky. I definitely want to have a more chat with you. We're going to probably be done with this. The Nuggets are playing tonight. And so we'll probably have to do our chat later. Thank you so much for coming on. I think a different perspective is always good, because sometimes you're hearing something and for some reason someone will say it's slightly different. And it's like, oh man, that made a lot more sense. I see what's happening. So I love having non-chiropractors, people in the business realm. So thanks for being on, Rocky.
Thank you so much for having me.
Heck yeah. All right, guys, Cultivating Success. We have a podcast here to help you guys successful in the business portion. Reach out if you have any questions. I will see you later.